No, this is it. Do you need any last minute makeup?
I think I need some.
Welcome. We are live. It is 7 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. I'm your host, Tazeen. You're watching Digging Deeper. And today, we've got a very interesting topic. Death and deadlines. I had a lot of people say, oh, that's a very interesting topic. I was like, well, you got to watch and find out more about it. So with me, I have Kanem X. So let's just jump right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your expression?
Well, first, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you to all your viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
I think this is really cool what you're doing.
Thank you.
And thank you to all the people that have listened to or come to a show of mine as well. So thank all of you. But yeah, I'm Kanem X, musician, guitarist, recorder, producer. I'm also electrical engineer by my education and what I do.
I didn't know that.
For a living.
I didn't know that about you. Cool.
Yeah, so also I'm a performer in the band Kanem X and the May Moons. I'm the guitarist and vocalist in that, as well as Hootie Tunes is another guitarist and vocalist in the band. Yeah. Boris the Boogeyman is our bassist, who will be away for the summer. So we have a friend Manoj from Dove Punch playing bass for us. Mm-hmm. And then we have Austin the Clip on drums, who's also going to be away for the summer, but Elijah's going to drum for us. So yeah, that's a band I perform in, and we actually do have a show. I'm going to plug real quick.
Yeah, of course.
We do have a show this Friday in Ann Arbor at Club Above. You can get your tickets online. Just go through my website, kanemmusic.com, K-A-N-E-M music.com.
And I'll link everything.
Yeah.
I'm now one of those YouTubers who's like, look below.
So yeah,
how did you guys come up with your names?
What do you mean our names?
Like
my name?
Yeah.
My name is my name.
No. like each person. Tell me the names of the band members.
Okay, so
because each one has like
Hootie Tunes. His name is Hootan. And
okay.
he just his Instagram was Hootie Tunes. Like I think before I knew him, so I always call him Hootie Tunes. Hootie Tunes. Our bassist his name's Al Bors. And I don't know, in the band I like to come up with like fun monikers.
Yeah.
I liked Boogeyman for a bassist, so I just called him Boris the Boogeyman.
That's pretty cool though.
Yeah, and then Austin, the Clip, because I think his last name starts with Klopp, so he would go by Clip Clop sometimes, so I just shortened it to the Clip.
Yeah, look, there you go.
And then everyone else doesn't have a nickname yet.
So if you need a nickname.
Yeah, I have a lot of names. My hat's name is Hercules Mulligan. My guitar that I have today is the General. So yeah.
You know, I named my guitars, but then I forgot what I named them because I didn't actually use them. Use the names.
I don't know. I mean, you just remember them in here, I guess.
You use them.
Yeah.
How did you get into playing guitar?
It was something that was kind of handed to me. My dad gave me a guitar at 9. Acoustic guitar, and I didn't have lessons then. I just kind of like had chord books and would he'd show me a few things because he knew how to play guitar a little bit, and then he saw I was like really taking interest in it, and he got me lessons when I was 10 in an electric guitar, and then I just kept with it. It kind of found me. I didn't really like search it out, but both my parents were really good about exposing me to a lot of things. My mom exposed me to like a lot of sports and things. Even though I'm not a sports guy, I still like appreciate a lot of sports. She got me everything from like ice skating to taekwondo and everything. So
the whole range.
Yeah. It was all like for like a semester or something. So
but it's great when parents expose you. Ismail's son plays with us. He's 16 and he's been drumming since he was 7.
Yeah.
And that's a really
he was 7.
Yeah, since he was 7.
It shows.
And I think it's pretty cool to be able to say as a teenager, I play with my dad's band.
Yeah.
These dope places.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it was good. I mean, in high school I played in places, well, not a lot of places around Ann Arbor, but, obviously like, talent shows and stuff I played for in middle school and high school. But there was like it's called the B-side now. It used to be called the Neutral Zone in Ann Arbor, which is like under 21 like club in Ann Arbor.
Oh, I think I know about this.
Yeah, I mean everyone. I think people like will hear about it, but if you're like over 21, it doesn't matter anymore because I see the place
not relevant
still.
to you anymore.
It's not relevant to me anymore. But that was a good place that a lot of bands played in. A lot of bands I was in played at.
Yeah.
So it was a good time.
Well, it's good exposure.
Yeah. And also, my brother started playing drums when I started playing guitar, so I always kind of had a band element.
So you guys could just always jam together.
Yeah.
Who needs anyone else? You're like, we live together. So, death and deadlines.
Yes.
You've got to introduce this topic.
Okay. Well, I'll
your choice.
I'll try to do it justice. Before I get into the topic, I want to probably say that I'm not an expert in creativity. None of us really are. We're always students.
Yeah.
Always learning. True. But to learn more about, like, I guess this topic, you could take backgrounds even from digging deeper. This topic originally comes from the Chase Jarvis Show, which is a podcast, and Chase Jarvis had this poet, Austin Kleon, on it, and so you can listen to that show and learn more kind of about what I'm going to talk about. Also, I really recommend this book, The Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday. It's a book about creating work that is impactful, like when it's released, but also lasts the test of time. So if you think of something like the book To Kill a Mockingbird, that has lasted the test of time. But if you think of a song like Despacito, it was fun for a minute, but it's vanishing. So so I got this topic from listening to the Chase Jarvis show. Austin Kleon is a Austin Texan, and he's a poet, and he's known for this poetry that he does. One of the things that he does is blackout poetry. Okay. So he will take like a newspaper article and then just black out like a lot of stuff on it, leave a few keywords, and have really interesting poems.
Oh, that's
so
pretty cool.
You can follow him on Instagram at Austin Kleon for that stuff. But so he was on. The general topic was why great artists steal, as a promotion for his book, I think with the same title. But it ends up being a lot more about things kind of revolving around this topic, like how small things get big over time, and how time is the finite material that we all work with. Yeah. So in that, he ends up throwing this idea out there, death and deadlines. That's the thing that we're up against in life. We're only really up against death and deadlines, and that just resonated with me. There's a phrase or quote that I write phrases and quotes on stickies and put them around my cube. Yeah. And it's from the story of the sword of Damocles, and it just says a sword hangs above us all. So you want to think about, like, death is not like a morbid thing. It's a way to think about life. And it's a way to think about living. Yeah. And really living is about what you're doing. Yeah. That's why the topic kind of resonated with me a lot. In particular, there was like this conversation about how people will want to be a noun without doing the verb. So if you want to be a musician, you can't just say, I'm a musician. You have to do it. So you have to be making music, you have to be playing music, you have to be performing music. And in particular, if you want to be recognized by other people in that vocation, you have to share it. Yeah. So that's what kind of Death and Deadlines ends up being about. It's about creating your work and sharing that work. Yeah. And the best way for creatives, one of the best ways for creatives to do that is to create deadlines for themselves, create goals for themselves. So that's why the topic kind of resonated with me. And honestly, I picked it because I was listening to the podcast. At the time I was talking to you, I was like, this sounds cool. And I like this kind of morbid title. That's very strong and bold.
But I like that way of that perspective of looking at death as not something that's sort of just looming, but something that if you're thinking about it, it sort of pushes you and motivates you to have purpose in your life. Yeah. And to sort of live this purposeful life. Yeah. We have a comment. Reem said, submitting grades by tomorrow, death and deadlines, cry face. She's a professor too.
And I'm sure it's easier for you to submit grades with that deadline. If you didn't have that deadline, what would it matter when you submit the grades? When would you do it? Yeah, when would you do it?
True.
I have a quote here that I think really kind of reflects on the parts of these ideas, and it is from Malcolm X, and the X in my name is from Malcolm X, and that is on my birth certificate, passport IDs. I was born with it. Kanem X is the name I was born with. That was your parents gave you this. Yeah, it's not my full name, but yeah, it's in there. But so the Malcolm X quote I have here is, I have less patience with someone who doesn't wear a watch than with anyone else. For this type of person is not time conscious. In all our deeds, the proper value and respect for time determines success or failure. And I think that kind of speaks to this. And I got that from Malcolm X, and I got that from influences from my dad, encouraging me to be interested in Malcolm X. So,
but that's true. I mean, if you are not conscious of time, you end up disrespecting other people.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're taking away time from others.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't come here on time. Kanem, by the way, came 30 minutes early, which was perfect because you got to relax, you got to drink water, you got to set up.
Yeah.
But it's good because then like you're on time and we're not taking away from anything.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Hello to everybody who's here. So yeah, let's jump right in. So we're talking about death and deadline. So in terms of music, because you're a musician, you play guitar, what does that mean to you? Like in terms of setting goals and trying to figure out what is it that you're creating and how do you give yourself a time frame to create those things? So
I think in general, when you're creating, you can be in the process of wasting time, which isn't bad. Einstein has a quote, creativity is the residue of wasted time, which I really like. So you're going to waste some time while you're creating, but you want to collect that residue and actually do something with it. So in terms of death and deadlines in music, I think you want to think of like the process of what you're doing, and the first process is actually determining what you are doing. That being, are you performing live? Are you recording an album? Are you recording a single? Are you just writing a song? You want to set up what you are doing, and then with that, I don't always find this the most important thing, but think of why you're doing it. A lot of times when I'm writing a song, like say my project is recording a single, why I'm doing that is just because music is a process that I've always enjoyed and always indulged in, and it's just something I do, irregardless of having goals.
But I think that's an extremely important question to have. Whether you're doing music or not, I think whatever topic, whatever expression that you have, I think it's extremely important to be cognizant of the purpose of that thing. I think it helps you, it helps guide you in that process.
Yeah, it does, definitely helps a lot. And I think part of that guiding is in also determining who your audience is going to be for something that you're working on, and defining that success. So if I'm working on a single, for me, I play rock and blues. So primarily I want to attract other people that really enjoy guitar, because that's what I play guitar. And then I kind of think of the people that have influenced me the most and what kind of style I write the most. So I think of like Slash, Gary Clark Jr., Stevie Ray Vaughan. And so I kind of target people that are interested in that sort of Venn diagram of circles, and try to create my music to interest those people. So I think that's really important when you're setting up boundaries on your music, to think of the end goal. And with that, you also want to set a date for when you actually want to release something. And then also, with setting that date, you want to think of how you're going to do it. What steps am I going to take? Preferably regularly. Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to write regularly to create the song? And then am I going to record regularly to make sure I'm on schedule to have the song ready so far in advance of my releasing it, so I can regularly promote the piece of music, so I have a successful release and reach the number of people and the audience I want to reach.
I would say too, like even before that, like, am I giving myself enough downtime to be able to create something? And I feel like that's something that I struggle with, because like anyone who knows us, like our life is just like back to back to back to back. Like we live off of our calendars, and having downtime and having time for ourselves is so important. And the creative process really happens the most beautifully and the most organically when we don't have anything planned except for just being.
Creativity is the residue of wasted time.
It's true though. It's so true. Let's take some comments here. How do you create on a deadline without sacrificing content, creativity, or inspiration? That's something that I struggle with as well.
I don't think you end up sacrificing creativity or inspiration on a deadline. If you think, the way I like to think about it is, if you've ever been in school when you have that exam, you get instantly creative of how am I going to, especially if it's like the day before, you get instantly creative of how am I going to remember all of this stuff. Like even today, I'm going to perform a song later with you guys, and how am I going to remember? Lyrics are the hardest thing for me to memorize, so how am I going to do that? And I did it regularly. Knowing that I'm going to have this deadline today, I use that in my creative process I got to write my lyrics, and I got to memorize them by this time. So I used I think last Tuesday, I said, this is when I'm going to have the lyrics done. And then from last Tuesday to this Tuesday, that's the time I'm going to practice it. So deadlines don't really hinder creativity. It helps you focus on doing something great, maybe not necessarily perfect, because perfection can lead you to just being in the spin. And if your purpose is to be like a musician or artist or creative, you have to create something and you have to release it into the world anyways. So if you aren't working on deadlines, then you might just continue to spin your wheel. Not saying that people cannot set deadlines and not be successful, but I think when you generally look at people that are successful in any field, but in particular creative fields, success can typically be seen with someone that creates deadlines and creates boundaries on this is what I want to create.
I think it's interesting that you use creativity with respect to studying for an exam. That's the first. I'm going to use that with my students. Guys, just be creative. She said, I asked because I write whenever inspiration hits. If I was to force myself to write, it would be super dry. And I think everyone has, different ways of that process going. Let's take one more and then I'll let you answer.
I feel like I'm an editor in that regard. So like if I'm writing something, I'll just think of an idea and I'll start writing about it. And if I'm doing something like on a deadline, like for example, writing for a song for the show, I wrote just something very bare and then started trying to fill in ideas and started editing the song to really get it to like a point where I'm like, this may not be the best thing in the world, but this is a lot better than what I started with. So I think, like just writing freehand will produce something creative, but having a deadline. I mean, everyone is their own individual person, so maybe deadlines aren't great for you, but I think they can be really helpful for a lot of people in general.
But I think the editing process definitely helps too. Everything you're saying is the same mindfulness I strive to bring to my communication strategizing. So that's what's up. Yeah, I think it's interesting because we're talking about creativity, we're talking about creating and deadlines, and it's not limited to just music. It's, whatever field you're in, that you're creating something.
I think that's really interesting because if you think of any other field that you're in, like me being an engineer, I have to turn in projects on a deadline. You being a teacher, you have like deadlines of I need to have my exams ready by this time. I need to provide grades to my students at this time. And that sort of structure helps you be successful in those fields. So I think people tend to be wary of deadlines as a musician because people think creative is just like a rambling process. But a lot of writers, another book I really like is Daily Rituals. I'll figure out who it's by in a minute. But this book called Daily Rituals goes through a lot of creative rituals. And a lot of times, creative people like artists, authors, even musicians, did their vocation daily, if not on a regular schedule. So I think that's really important to see and understand that they did have a deadline or at least a goal for themselves every day to work on what they love every day or regularly to achieve that book that they were going to write or that amazing sculpture that they were going to put together.
I think that's absolutely true. Because when I first started playing guitar, I played for about an hour to 2 hours every single day for the first 2-3 years. And I think that like you learn so much, and after that time, like I feel like I hit a plateau because after a while I stopped doing that. And I started I'll play once a week or I'll play when I have time. And I think when you don't dedicate that time, and he's telling me this all the time, like if you don't dedicate the time to your craft every single day or to your craft regularly at least, like you're not going to be able to build on it.
That's why I'm doing that music challenge right now.
So Kanem's doing this music challenge on his Instagram, which is really awesome. Can you tell them about it?
So this music challenge I'm doing is I'm just going to release a video every day playing guitar. just record a video of me playing guitar, maybe sometimes singing. And if I don't release it, you catch me, I'm using not negative. I don't think it's called negative reinforcement, but I'm using a disincentive for me. Basically, if I don't release a video, then you can tell me, hey, you didn't release a video, and then I have to Venmo you $5 in order to do that. So, but that's just to help me play regularly, practice regularly. Also to help me like release content regularly, which is an important part that can sometimes feel weird. But much like your show, you're doing this regularly.
Once a week. Which
is helping your skills a lot as a host, as an interviewer, and as a person in this community. Yeah. So I thought that I really admire the show for that.
Yeah, but when you put that out, I was like, I need to do this.
We'll do it.
The semester is about to end, so...
No, don't do it when the semester ends.
I'm gonna...
Okay, you see, I started mine last Tuesday just as talking to my friend kind of about doing it, and then I was like, you know what, no, I'm going to do this until the 31st.
But...
Because it's really weird.
Also,
I'm doing it for 43 days.
I'm moving soon.
What better time to do it than, like, okay, that'll sharpen me so much. It sharpens you so much.
You're pushing me right now, but this is good. This is what a community of creatives should do.
Pressure creates diamonds.
True. I mean, pressure does do that. I feel like that's the truth. Now I'm going to be thinking about this afterwards. Should I start this today? Because when I first started playing guitar, I feel like I used to put out more videos because I was regularly practicing stuff, and because I haven't been as much, I just haven't put out stuff.
Well, if you do something every day, you start thinking about, okay, what do I have to do today, or what do I want to do today?
Yeah.
Early on in your day, like I think about I either think about doing my video early in the morning, or I wake up and I think, I haven't done it yet. Yeah. I want to wake up and just do it in the morning and get it out of the way. But you start thinking about that all day, and honestly, sometimes I will write the script of what my video will be about, like, before I even get to my guitar. Like, I'll write it in the morning somewhere, just general, like, okay, I'm gonna play this sort of thing, and especially if it's like a song, a cover song, or a song that is just already in my repertoire, an original song that I've already made, I will write up the blurb about that song early in the day as kind of like thinking, like, this is the last thing I have to do, and I already have that done. So doing the middle part is gonna be like even easier. Yeah.
I love that you're organized with that. Because I think that's the one thing that's... There she is. There's Aubrey. That's the one thing that's difficult, I think, about this, like, stereotype of artists tends to be that we're all, like, sort of just in the air and just go with the flow. And although, like I understand what Reem is talking about. Inspiration hits when it hits. Like, you know, there's no denying that.
But also, I argue that you are practicing inspiration hits when it hits, as opposed to practicing, let me try... Okay, the way I like to look at it is, like, if you allow inspiration to hit you when it hits, you're just looking for inspiration. But if you work towards doing something every day, you can be inspirational, which I argue is more powerful.
Look at you! Wow, yeah.
I have an hour commute. I listen to a lot of stuff.
Listen to a lot of podcasts and books.
Yeah, that's why I asked you to put it on iTunes.
I love it.
So I can crank up the radio.
Yeah, now it's on iTunes. So this is on iTunes. This relates to what Kamau was talking about in the episode that we did about art identity. Because he was talking about being receptacles of, like, divine inspiration or some sort of inspiration. And it's not like you're just sitting and waiting for it. You have to do some sort of action to be inspired.
You guys always talk about, like, pulling from the river of inspiration.
Yeah.
And I think that if you practice pulling from that river regularly, it comes easier.
Yeah.
I mean, doing this daily video thing, I find just random things that I enjoy just playing. Yesterday, I got home kind of late after work because I had to work late. I had to get dinner ready. I had to walk my dog and everything. Yeah. I had to do a lot of things when I got home, and I didn't feel like I had much time to really dedicate to the video. Yeah. So that pressure and deadline allowed me... I mean, what I made yesterday probably isn't the best thing in the world, but it was something interesting and something I liked enough to just kind of play it real quick and get something out there. And I pulled from that river that day and created something original because, you know, that's just the practice I want to be a part of.
Yeah. I mean, props to Ashley to talking about, for talking about the river, but it's true. I mean, you pull from it every single day, something different is going to come out of it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. Welcome to everyone who is with us. So, boundaries. Let's talk a little bit about boundaries. Boundaries in songwriting and recording, because now you're talking about creating deadlines, and what does that have to do with boundaries?
So that goes back to like knowing what you do, know why you're doing it, know when you want to have it done, you want to know how you're going to do it, and defining that success, and knowing who your audience is. Do
you write these things down?
Do I write these things down? Mm-hmm. I mean, these are things I think about, and I do write, but I don't like write it very clearly down. I'll think of general things like. Again, I have my audience written down on what I want. I have, and also creating goals of, how do I want to increase like my listener base and things like that. Not saying that that's something I'm going to hit, because I think you should always begin with like the end in mind. Yeah. But don't be too concerned if it doesn't end up that way. At least just have that direction that you're pushing towards.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. But there are things I write down. In particular, definitely like what's my deadline. So I'm writing singles throughout the year, and I'll release them. I think I'm gonna have to stick to my word because I'm saying it out loud. I have discussed it with a band, so maybe that's okay. So I think June, August, then September, October, November, December.
So one each.
Yeah, one each, and that's release dates. So that's when it's coming out.
So it has to be done.
So it has to be done, at least for me, it's at least a month before. So I have to finish recording stuff by the end of May, so I can hit my June release date.
Yeah.
And with that, I for the one I'm releasing in June, I already have everything written. I finished the demo. I gotta send the tabs out to the band, like the music out to the band, so they can learn it and record it with me. Mm-hmm. But I have all that set out. I have ideas of when am I going to record the bass guitar, when am I going to record the rhythm guitars, when am I going to record the lead guitars, when am I going to record the vocals. I break it down into the steps of what do I need to do to achieve this is recorded, now this is mixed, now this is mastered, and now I can just chill and wait for it to be released. Not really just chill. I mean, I'm going to go talk to people and ask people to talk about the single that I'm releasing and whatnot. So,
have you read about SMART goals before?
No.
Because that's what this reminds me of. SMART goals are goals that are specific, measurable, attainable. I think what does the A stand for? Attainable, realistic, and time-bound? I think that's what it is. But I feel like everything you labeled out, that's what it is.
I mean, it's like I think that's like the entrepreneurial spirit that's like out in the world is like really setting yourself up, thinking about the end in mind. And with that, you every time you have, like think about the release. My end point is to release it, but my other end points are to record it, to master it, to mix it, to do all those steps, to practice it.
And there's such a process from getting to the creative, like from creating to actually mastering and putting it out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think
attainable, realistic, and time bound.
Okay. Yeah, it's just like the entrepreneurial spirit that's like out in the world.
But it works.
Yeah.
The thing is that system really does work, and I think it forces you to be very cognizant and very just constantly aware of why you're doing what you're doing, and how is your behavior and your action today going to help in what you want to happen. In attaining that goal.
Yeah. I feel like in that acronym, realistic is like the one thing I have a gripe with. Not necessarily saying that you shouldn't be realistic, because I try to be realistic in short terms. So if I have to do something in the week, I will be realistic about that. Yeah. But in long terms, I will be unrealistic. Because...
Meaning you want to do more?
Yes. Because you will typically underestimate what you can do in the long term, but overestimate what you can do in the short term. And that's just from, again, The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. I think he said something about
I have that book and I still haven't read it.
Oh, listen to it.
That's smart.
That's why I just listen to books. I bought the book and I didn't read it, and I just bought the Audible version of it and listen to it in like a week.
I should use Audible.
You should. You get 1 free credit, so pick your first book wisely. And then it's like $15 a month. This is an Audible ad. Sponsor.
We are not being sponsored. I did use Audible once, and the book that I listened to was Ishmael, which I really liked.
Okay. Well,
it was like a very philosophical book, but it was great.
Remember, I think this is something that I want to talk to you about, but spend on what you love. If you love reading and listening to books, it's $15 a month. Most of the books are more than $15, so you get a credit.
It's absolutely
worth it. They can spend on books that are more.
I mean, this is the reason why I pay for Spotify Premium.
Exactly.
Because I use it every
Screw
single
those
day.
ads.
I do not want ads, and I want to make my own playlist, and I want to listen to what I want to listen to. So yeah, that's true. If you believe in it, it's meaningful to you. Yeah. It's worth it.
Yeah, I've been on Spotify. I think I had like the regular service for like about a week. I was
like, this is bull.
I ain't living this life.
You can't skip anything. You can't create stuff. And
I was a student at the time, so it was just like $5
Pandora just has all these commercials, and you're like, stop trying to make me buy stuff.
Is Pandora good anymore? Like, is it still just
radio?
I
have not used Pandora in 7 years, so 6-7 years. So I have no idea. So let's move on. We had like a list of some things that you wanted to talk about. And you talked about pre-mortem.
Yes.
I'm just going to let you jump into it.
Okay, so...
I think it was interesting.
If you think about a post-mortem, post-mortem is like, you're looking at a body and seeing what was done to it after a crime. Pre-mortem would be... Isn't thinking about like a dead body. Pre-mortem is like more thinking about... is the idea of thinking ahead of time about your mortality. It's almost like thinking about how America, how it handles its hurricanes. I just saw like a small clip, Facebook. It's just one of those Facebook like, now this little clips. But I thought it was really interesting, and it kind of speaks to the pre-mortem. How America handles hurricanes is that a hurricane will happen, and then we help people. How a place like, I think it's like Norway or one of the Scandinavian countries, they can experience, I think, floods in general. Yeah. But how they handle it is they have a bunch of like precautions beforehand, a bunch of like dams or whatever. I don't know how they fix the water to make it behave, but they make sure the water behaves before something happens. So that, and what's interesting is it's almost always more cost effective to do something ahead of time, as opposed to...
Flint water crisis?
Yeah, that's probably
There's
true.
An example. There's
a
great example. Yeah, it's always more cost effective to take care of it beforehand. Yeah. So how does that relate to music, though?
But how it relates to music is unpack what can go wrong. I think the best and simplest example is, for me, as a guitarist, at a gig, I'm performing live in front of a bunch of people, and my string breaks. What do? Do I stop the song right then? Maybe I have to, or maybe I make sure the band takes a beat with the song, and maybe I go change my string. But probably the best option is just to have a backup guitar. And so I always
my heart kind of dropped a little bit when you said my string breaks. I was like, oh.
Oh, I've had string breaks before. And it's just a thing. It's a guitar.
It's a guitar.
It happens. So I always have a backup guitar, and between, I always bring a backup guitar, and so there's another guitarist in the band. I'm like, hey, don't worry about bringing your another guitar who do tunes. Just grab mine if your string breaks. Yeah. So that's just kind of how I handle that situation. And if I do need to go back to my first guitar after we finish that song, I can maybe take a beat and go change that string or something, and then come back out on stage. Yeah. But that's like kind of thinking of like the worst case scenario. So like. I think you just want to think about those things, like what can go wrong. So when you're releasing something, what could go wrong when releasing a single or any sort of music? Maybe the timing didn't line up for you to record this specific instrument. Say you want like a sax, but the timing doesn't coordinate to record that sax. Either have another saxophonist or think of another way to do it. Off the top of my head, I think, okay, let me utilize like an organ or something that has a very unique sound. It's not going to sound like the sax, but it has another unique sound that maybe I want in that palette.
It'll add a different element.
Yeah. So I always think of the pre-mortem in that way, thinking, again, with the end in mind. Like even with my first EP, Bite the Bullet, which was released in 2017, I thought...
Go get it.
Yeah, I thought a lot about things that I wanted to do, but like making concessions on those things. Kind of thinking about, okay, so I recorded this EP all by myself. I only recorded guitar and vocals on it. Everything else is software instruments on Logic Pro X. So going into it, I made concessions saying that it's going to be an EP that is basically a backing track that I'm playing guitar and singing on. But I looked up stuff online and tweaked things and thought about this beforehand of how can I make this sound the best that it can, even though this is what it's kind of going to be at the end of the day. Yeah. So thinking about that in the first place allowed me to do some research, allowed me to allot time to tweak my songs and a lot in the mixing and mastering process. It allowed me to think of those obstacles I've come to. So it's a way of just clearing a path and minimizing the obstacles in it ahead of time. It's like when you wake up in the morning. I don't do this all the time, but checking the traffic before you go to work. Yeah. That allows you to either one, plan a different route to work, or two, allows you to accept that you're going to be in traffic ahead of time. Because the worst thing I think it's way worse prepared. To just be stuck in traffic and be surprised by it. I think that's way worse.
If you know, then it's like, okay, we're just going to roll with it.
Yeah.
That's true. And I think the more that you play and the more you gig and the more experience you have with that, the more it prepares you, because now you know, okay, these are things that could go wrong. Yeah. These are things that have happened. How do I fix them in the future? Like the thing that we were talking about, not having a guitar stand, for instance. The first couple of gigs we didn't have a guitar stand. And then we're like, this is not working out. Like we need...
Not the life we want to live.
Not the life we want to live at all. So things like that. We've got a lot of comments here. Okay. Deadlines help me get past the painful steps in producing a final piece.
Definitely agree with that. I think when you're working on a particularly a piece that's close to the heart, those deadlines help you focus on something other than just the pain. I liken it, so Layla, my brilliant, beautiful girlfriend, likes to go to spin class, and sometimes they make you do things that you wouldn't think are challenging, like keeping your arms up, and sorry for the sweat stains, keeping your arms up, and just circulating to really work out your shoulder. And that can be really difficult over time, but if you turn up the resistance and really focus on moving your legs instead of the movement that's in your arms, it's kind of distracting yourself from the painful experience that's happening in your shoulders. So, but yeah, just having something else to focus on than just the...
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Kareem said, I still use it pretty good, meaning Spotify. Kamal said, this man is about his business. Yes, he is.
I try to be.
But I think that's important, because if you weren't, then you probably wouldn't be successful at what you're doing.
I probably wouldn't be here.
You probably wouldn't be here. Be like, Kanem X, I don't know who this guy is.
I mean, yeah, I think there's a certain amount of entrepreneurial aspirations that you should consider if you're gonna be creative and you want any sort of benefit from your creative, is that you want to think in some sort of aspect of what am I doing here and how am I building this?
What do you do? What advice would you have, or what do you do in your own personal life when you have set certain deadlines for yourself, or let's say you've got a show and then things in life just don't add up to where you want them to be? You just, whatever you had planned just was not happening. How do you deal with that?
Learn from it. I think that's that's the biggest thing, is learn from your failure and think about where you went wrong. For example, I wish I would have released a single this month in April. It was an idea that I had, and it was kind of on my calendar, but I did not plan any steps in a way to accomplish it. And I think the other thing that I realized is, I'm not releasing a single, so technically I failed. Well, not technically, I failed. and that was just an internal thing. I didn't let anyone know, but and that was the one thing I came to realize through this. And if you start letting people know that you're going to do something, I think there's a certain amount of accountability that creates. So, yeah.
Which is helpful.
Yeah.
It sort of ignites this flame under your ass to just, come on.
Yeah.
Get to moving. Which is, I mean, it's true. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to do Digging Deeper once a week, because I knew that if I was less consistent than this, if I did it once a month or if I did it twice a month, I felt like it wouldn't have the same impact, and maybe I wouldn't be thinking about it and doing all the things that I need to do had it not been.
Weekly is like a really good goal to have for a project like this. It's a really good goal for like band practices. I mean, I might have to switch to doing it bi-weekly over the summer, but weekly is just so good for consistency because the way we view time is either daily or weekly, more or less. Monthly, it starts getting too distorted for you to think about.
That's true. I mean, when we have band practice once a week, I think we always do better.
Yeah.
Always, every single time. And you remember what you did last time. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but to record what you did and then throughout the week listen to it and figure out what you want to do for the next week. Yeah. That constant planning. And I know there are going to be people who are watching who are just going to be like, I'm not a planner. I mean,
you don't have to be a planner. The thing I think about is, to be successful, you don't have to be a planner. Mm. I agree with that. But if you look at a lot of people that have been successful and that are successful, they plan. Yeah. They schedule, themselves to think about schedule. It. They reflect on what they've done. They analyze where they could have done better. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think if you're not a planner, that's okay. You don't have to be.
You don't have to be. But I will say that Rim said, I think I'm going to start weekly goals. Yeah, start it.
You should.
I will say that whether you're a planner or not, you should always be reflective. And I think if you are reflective, it'll sort of push you in that direction of maybe I should start planning, maybe I should start making goals, And I think that one of the things that's really hard is we live in a society that doesn't strive for being reflective. That's not something that's pushed, definitely not in media. And I would argue even in schools, you're not taught to be reflective. You're taught to just learn this book, memorize it, and then be able to, take a test on this material. But could you think critically about it? And if you were to think critically about whatever it is, whether it's yourself or what you're planning on doing or what your purpose is in life, I think that naturally would make a person sit back and say, maybe this isn't something I want to do. Maybe there's something else that I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
But if you're not reflective or if you're not thinking about those things, then I don't know. At least that's usually my motivation.
No, I mean, I find it funny as you said, if you reflect, maybe you'll end up being a planner. But even my reflections, I plan. I'm like, I'm gonna reflect on Monday. Monday morning, I'm gonna wake up.
Monday morning reflections.
Last week or last 2 weeks. What I did, what could I do better? What did I think an important thing in your reflection too, when you're reflecting on things, think of what you're doing well. I think people fail, people a lot of times think of a reflection of what can I do better? Yeah. What am I not doing well that I can do better? I need to fill the gaps. Think of the things that you're doing great. Yeah. And think about I can put some extra salt on this and make it extra tasty.
Yeah. It's true. Your friend said habits. That's so true. Think of things that you're doing great.
And you know what's interesting? I bet even if you are a creative person that does not plan, I bet you have a routine. A lot of chaotic people still have, when they look at it, maybe it's something that cycles every 2 weeks, maybe it cycles every week. But maybe it's just these small aspects of your life that have a routine. Yeah. So it'd be, if you're interested in planning, it'd just be about expanding the idea of creating a routine.
Yeah, because routine definitely does help. But I like what you're saying about even planning when you're going to reflect. But that sort of relates to, there was a couple of years I did. I haven't done it this year, but there were a couple of years where I kept a gratitude journal. And I would just reflect every night on things that happened during the day. Yeah, things that I was grateful for, things that I felt joy. because of, and I think it changed my outlook, and it changed how I felt the next morning waking up.
Yeah, it definitely does. I try to, if I'm good, I try to, when I'm good, I try to write every night, and I try to do the reflection of what do I appreciate the day before. Then I also, I'm like, what do I want to hit the ground running with the next day?
This guy, you need to be a coach, is what you need to be.
Nah, I'm not trying to play the job.
Did you journal ever?
I journal all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. Again, it just, if inspiration hits me, I will just write.
Yeah.
If I have the time to.
Yeah.
So I normally always keep a journal, or I just use my iPhone, write down ideas of what I'm thinking. I strongly believe in like the mind dump. Yeah. So sometimes when you write, don't write anything in particular. Just dump everything out of your mind. Like, I went to that meeting this morning. So and so told me this thing. I need to do that later. Yeah. Oh yeah, later in the week I have to go see Infinity Wars or whatever.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. Or I really like potatoes and cheese. Like that tastes really delicious. Like, even just writing those things, just getting some of those thoughts out of your head can clear the path for you to write something awesome.
That's interesting because you're thinking of it as clearing the path, and I was thinking of it as maybe you'll go back and you'll find something in that.
Yeah, that too. Dump. But I always just think I'm clearing a path. Because I rarely go back in my mind, into my mind.
No, but that makes sense.
Such nonsense.
That makes sense. Because sometimes our minds are really cluttered with all these things that are blocking us.
Even like at work, if I find myself feeling very pressured or very cluttered in my mind about a project, I'll take 2 seconds, just pop open like a untitled note document, text edit or whatever, and I'll just write like what I'm thinking, what's really blocking me, and just writing what the problem is in the first place like helps me think of like, oh, how am I going to solve this problem? I'm an engineer, a nerd, so naturally.
You naturally have some personality characteristics, and your brain is wired in certain ways. I believe that. I mean, I think that people are wired differently, but I think that you can also, I mean, Rafrana said habits. I think you can wire yourself to have habits. Yeah.
It's about what you practice. It takes like 2 weeks to form, roughly 2 weeks to form a habit. So, if you want to do something, like let's say you want to work out daily, right? That's something I want to do. I don't work out daily, but it's something I want to do.
Yeah.
If I make that a goal for myself to do every day, and I do that over 2 weeks. Like in the past, when I've been on a good workout binge, typically after the first 2 weeks I've done it, I can go on for like 3-4 months.
And you're good,
and then I'm good. But if I don't make it that first 2 weeks, then
if you did a couple days sporadically and this and that. Yeah. That's the thing. Like if you start it, you do it a couple days and then you stop. Then your 2 weeks has to start over again.
Yeah.
You start over again. Gratitude at night. Right. Nice. Yeah, that's true. I mean, habits can be formed, whether you're a planner or not. I truly believe that. And I think artistic habits can be formed.
I really believe that. I dislike it when people say someone is a natural talent at something. Like, examples that come to mind are Mozart and Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is like playing golf since he was like 6, 7. Yeah. That's not natural talent. I've been doing this since I was 6. Mozart, the same thing. Ismail's son, he's been playing drums since he was 7. It's not natural talent. It's that he took the time to do this regularly. Yeah. I don't completely believe in the 10,000 hours, but I do believe that if you practice something, you will naturally get better at it.
Yeah. And it will become more natural to you.
Yeah.
Over time. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Paused. And we're back. Sometimes that happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're here. There's 6 people here.
Well, do you guys set boundaries in your recording and stuff? How did that process go for you guys? Because I know you guys are going to release something in 1.5 weeks, right?
Yep. May 4th.
May 4th.
It
check
was...
it out.
Yeah, definitely check us out. May 4th, we're releasing our album. We're having... our release party and event and performance on May 4th at the Jazz Cafe. We just went by there yesterday. It's on the Marquee.
I saw that.
That was actually pretty exciting.
I probably should walk my dog by it just to
you should
sit in person.
Go look by it. It's it was interesting. I think that Ismail definitely did set some timeline for when he wanted it to get done, and it ended up happening because he had said, okay, by the first weekend of January, I want it recorded. And then the first weekend of January, we recorded the whole thing. And the way that we recorded it was we did it at a studio, and we were in a circle, and we all, because the most natural sound is when we're all playing together. So we recorded it while we're all playing it together. And the studio that we went to at Willis Studio they did such a fantastic job. And it got done. And then
I'm super excited for it.
I am too. I am too. I'm very proud. I'm very proud of Ismail. I'm very proud of everyone in the band because it came together nicely. But I think that had we not had those deadlines, that wouldn't have happened. And I also think that we could have probably released it a little bit earlier, but life happens sometimes and you have to switch things up. So it's a learning process. I think the next album that we do, I think it'll be more of a
the first one's always
process.
Like even for me, like the first one for me, I met my goal. I think March 2017. That's why I said it's gonna be released that month, and I met that goal, but to the sacrifice of maybe some sound quality.
Yeah.
So it has my first review has a grit and character, and definitely a DIY work ethic in there.
Yeah.
But
you made it happen.
I could have made it sound better. And if I didn't do that in the first place, I would have a benchmark to measure myself against.
Yeah, that's true.
Now you guys have that benchmark of this is what our first album sounds like.
Yeah.
What can we do better? What can we reflect on and do better in the second one?
True.
And that's one of the things too. We were talking just last night at rehearsal about, when you create an album and it's all mastered and you're about to put it out, to have a listening party for just the bandmates, to sit down and listen to the entire album, song by song, and just talk and reflect about what you liked and whatnot. And the thing is, I'm really happy because I think that all of the songs came out really beautifully.
How could they not?
And it's so weird too because the day we recorded it, that was the best performance that we've done of all of those songs.
Deadlines, that pressure, that you're with your students, that pressure, I need to know how to do this for my exam tomorrow.
It's so true.
Recording is your exam.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, live performances. You can allow so much fluctuation in a live performance because it's just a moment that's there and then gone for the most part, unless you have a really embarrassing YouTube video out there. But more or less, it's there, it's gone.
Yeah.
But recording, it's there
it's immortalized.
for eternity until the internet breaks.
That's so true. But that sort of relates to one of the other things that you had mentioned when we were talking about this in the past couple of weeks, was about, you have a recording, we've recorded this album, you recorded your EP, and you're working on singles. Just because you've finished it, mastered it, and you've put it out, doesn't mean that it's just done and that's just how it is. You can always go back and change it. You can make a deadline for yourself, meet it, and then decide, okay, I want to change something. I want to add to it.
My favorite example is Voodoo Child by Jimi Hendrix to Voodoo Child, Slight Return by Jimi Hendrix. Completely different songs, but it was all from the same root.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I believe there's the version that you maybe demo with, maybe you play your first couple gigs with. There's the version that you end up recording, and then there's the live versions that you kind of create after that. Ashley Peacock, that was on one of the previous episodes, quoted Keith Richards saying, "The song is never finished; it's abandoned." And that's what a song it's never really. I mean, every time even when you play it live, it's gonna be a little bit different. Even if it's just the crowd is different, every crowd's gonna be different, and they're gonna receive it just a little bit differently.
Or if you want to just change it altogether. We went to, I don't know if we talked about this on Piper's episode, but when we went to Lauryn Hill's concert 2 years ago, she did her entire album completely different. And there were a bunch of people who were like, I wanted to hear the same thing. I wanted to hear...
It's a difficult choice to make.
But as an artist, I loved it. I appreciated it. I thought that, wow, she took these really her album's timeless. She took a timeless album, she took those tracks, and she spun it, and it was the same song, but just a completely different experience.
It's like Childish Gambino going from rap to like R&B.
Exactly.
Everyone was like, "Oh, this is awful," and then like Redbone came out, and everyone shut the hell up.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of being artistic, is that you have that freedom to flow and change and grow and test out different things. Why not?
While having boundaries is good, also going outside your comfort zone expands like what you think, whether that be travel, whether that be playing a different genre of music.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be.
That's so true. I have this thing written down about balancing directed action and free-flowing inspiration. But that kind of relates to what we were talking about before. And if anyone has any comments or questions, please feel free. One other thing that you had mentioned was musician materialism, which kind of relates, but I think that, like when you have these goals and when you want to have a certain sound and when you want to perfect your sound, naturally you end up wanting other equipment and wanting other stuff to create those sounds. So how does one balance those waves of desiring more equipment?
I mean, there's several ways. The first thing that comes to mind is how much credit do you have?
True.
But
True. If you've got low credit, just it's over.
No,
do it.
I think you have to start thinking in terms. Like the biggest thing I do is I start thinking in terms of what is this going to do differently, and is that going to be a drastic difference in my sound? I think that's really important thing, and I still think you should spend on what you love, because also like buying new equipment, so it's kind of exhilarating. We grew up in this American materialistic capitalistic country. We're gonna have that in our veins a little bit, so sometimes spending money on a nice amp, a nice guitar, a nice set of speakers feels really good, and especially if it sounds better, then like you're kind of achieving a better result. But I think about Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machines. This isn't about spending, but this is about an aspect of a guitarist where they're always tweaking their sound to try to sound different and better and like more unique. He just like one day set his sound, marked it with like a marker on his amp, and says, "I am not changing this.
This forever."
Yeah, forever. This is what I think he's probably changed it since then, but it was like during the time when Rage Against the Machine was coming up, and that is like what I kind of think about is like, is this really going to make me drastically better, or is this just a purchase that like is going to, I don't know, fluff me up? Like, for example, I mean, I got a guitar, like I was telling you about the hollow body I got recently. I didn't like do like the official like Instagram, hey, I got a new guitar, because I'm like, this guitar isn't about that. This guitar is about just like, this is something I wanted, and it's something that I appreciate and really enjoy playing, but it's not about like showing off. And I think that's why you want to be careful in what you're getting. Is it about showing off? If it is, then it doesn't make sense. But if it's about helping you play better or be more confident playing, like for example, always grew up with a Gibson guitar. That's what this tattoo is. It's a Gibson Les Paul double cutaway.
I always saw the bottom of it, never saw the top. There you go.
But for a time I didn't have a Gibson Les Paul, and that's something I really wanted, and I've always really wanted a Marshall amp. I bought those two things, and I really don't have the desire to get too many other things after getting those things, and just going back to gratitude, taking the time to appreciate what you have. I think before you spend and get more material things, appreciate what you have and think about, is this really going to change anything? Or is this going to be something I'm going to sell a couple of years down the road? Think about the longevity of stuff. If it's not something that you're going to have for years to come, maybe it's not the best thing to get.
So just being reflective and thoughtful.
Yeah.
We have a minute before we close out and do the performance portion. Do you have any last minute thoughts?
I don't know. I was interested about this. What do you wish on the next album you would write a song about? Because I always challenge myself to try to not. It comes out sometimes. I try to challenge myself to not write about love, because love is a really easy topic to write about, and a topic that a lot of people write about. So I'm always interested in like, what topic would you want to cover in a song on the next album?
Are you asking me, or
I'm
just
asking
putting it out there?
I'm asking you.
I think I would want to write about some of the topics that we've been talking about on this show. Things like reflection, things like gratitude, things like thinking about mortality, those type of topics.
I respect that.
Yeah. All right, with that, those of you guys who always watch, you know what the deal is. We'll be back in 10 seconds, and then we're going to have a performance. So, for those of you guys who don't know, behind me, this is my husband. And he's going to be joining Kanem on a little performance. So you can tell them about it.
I'll just let our client speak for it. Many moons have passed on the destined road. You've always been buying what you were sold. But now you got fresh soil, you're gonna take new roads. But you're always digging deeper to find your own truth. Felt all the lashes, coagulated blood. You even seen a fire come down on love. You can't fight every battle, sometimes you say me. But you always dig deeper to find your own truth. Oh yeah, can't tell your feet if you leave the brother dying in the heat. You have the evidence, now you just have to prove. So you keep digging deeper to find your own truth.
Thank you.
That was the first time
Thank
they
you very
did
much.
that.
Please check out Team Lufuki and Divine Providence playing May 4th.
May 4th, next Friday.
Yeah.
Next Friday.
Jazz Cafe, 8 o'clock. Sophie
Sophia
E is open up for us, 8 o'clock. It's going to be a great show.
Definitely check it out. And then if you're in Ann Arbor, check out my show this Friday, April 27th. You can find links through my website, kanemmusic.com. If you really know you're going to come, buy tickets ahead of time. It's $5 as opposed to $7 at the door. And ticket sales dry up Thursday night, so you need to purchase it before Friday, even though the show is on Friday.
Got it. Do you want to play anything else for everyone?
I mean, are you good? I'm good. I'm not gonna embarrass myself.
Well,
Thank y'all.
If you can move on my
Okay,
seat.
sure.
She's gonna close it out.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having
Being on
me
the show.
tremendously. It's an honor and a privilege. And quickly, sorry for not being at the open mic at Desert Oasis, which I have on Tuesdays in Detroit.
Is that where
but that's where we met.
That is where we met.
First open mic.
That was where we met.
Yeah, and thank you for.
This can see there right now. Huh? Like, where is he? He's not here.
Thank you for accepting, my handshakes and my gratitude to your first performance that I saw with you guys playing there, and I'm happy that I came up and talked to you.
Yeah, me too.
We're really happy to see you too.
Yeah. And I'm always happy to.
Started a good friendship.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Reem said more. People liked him. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate everyone watching the show. We only have one more episode left in the season. Yep. So next week's episode is the last episode of season 1. It will be the finale, episode 14. And the guest will be Lufuki. So it's going to be a husband and wife episode. That's where we're going to do a little special little episode to end off this season. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, that should be fun. And in the meantime, check out the website. I will have all of the links posted for Kanem X and all his stuff with the band and performances. And anything that you mentioned, books and stuff, all of that will be mentioned there too. So with that, have a blessed evening and see you guys next week.